completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial it.
Dear Center, I'd like to do something to help you.
Oh, hi there. You want to know what a day in the life of a telephone is like? Really? Well, you wouldn't believe it. Why, the things I've heard. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm not an eavesdropper. But if you're a phone, how can you help overhearing an occasional conversation?
We all know so well what telephones look like, how simple they appear to be, and how easy they are to use, that we seldom give them a second thought. It's hard to believe that the telephone once looked like this.
Hey again, this is Kyle here to continue discussing Non-Things by Byung-Chul Han. And today I'm going to go ahead and move on to chapter 3, which is called Smartphone. So in my opinion, these are the key concepts of this chapter. One, what makes a smartphone smart? The implication of touch, typing, having the, as he puts it, the world at our fingertips, and what that does to our relationship with the world when it's all right in front of us on our phone. In this chapter, Han's also going to talk about the concept of the other, and also the concept of hyperreality, which one of the people commenting on the earlier videos mentioned, or they predicted that he would be going into that subject, which is very interesting. So Han says, the constant typing and swiping on the smartphone is an almost liturgical gesture, and it has a substantive impact on our relation to the world. I swipe away the information that does not interest me. I zoom in on the content that I like. I have the world firmly in my grip. The world has to accord with my desires. In this way, the smartphone amplifies self-referentiality. Through all my swiping, I submit the world to my needs. Han says that the truly beautiful cannot be touched. It demands distance. So think about a beautiful sunset or a beautiful view out onto the ocean. You can't touch it. It's out of your reach. Yeah, and Han will go on to talk a lot about touch this chapter, about hands and fingers and the way touching things on a cell phone affects our relationship to them and to information and to reality in the world. So think about the painting hanging in the gallery with the little ceremonial rope in front of it, really just a symbolic distance. You could go up and rip that painting off the wall or touch it or whatever, but we respect that. We respect the sanctity of the keeping our distance from the painting. So just a little anecdote about my relationship to the history of smartphones. The summer that the iPhone came out, I was back from college, and my friend's dad hooked me up with a summer job at an AT&T cell phone store where I was the product pro for the iPhone. In that time, in a cell phone store, there were all kinds of different mobile phones, flip phones, ones that spin around, Blackberries, Sidekicks, Nokia, Razor. There were like all these varieties of different kind of phones. So I was the guy who would stand at a little display kiosk and let people, demo the iPhone when it came out. Anyway, I wasn't the best salesman, but it didn't matter because people, the minute it was the minute that they zoomed in on a photo, just touching that screen and zooming in, like the phone just sold itself. That was it. It was the touching, the zooming, the little buzz, the little haptic response that it gives you, that, people went nuts over that. So, and yeah, thinking back on it, it was really the touch aspect that was very not, the touchscreen thing that was novel. It felt magic, like you were, a wizard, or it was Minority Report or things like that. Han says that in the age of the smartphone, the distance destroying, consuming way of seeing approximates the sense of touch. It desecrates the world. To this way of seeing, the world appears only in the form of availability. For the frantically typing index finger, everything is consumable. On Tinder, it degrades the other, who becomes a sexual object. Deprive his or her of her otherness, and the other becomes consumable. And yeah, Han's going to go on and go into heavily into this idea of the other. which I don't know really where that term originates. I don't know if it's in philosophy or psychology, but it's, so another person in the same room as you is going to be elicit a lot of like physical reactions from you, maybe nervousness if they're a stranger, maybe fear if they're a boss or somebody who's angry with you, maybe comfort, love, friendship, but there's kind of like there's like a pressure, there's a connection with that other person. So you feel the pressure from their eyes, their unique way of being, unconscious things like their smell, their posture, thoughts you have about them, like suspicions, history together, things like that. They have the possibility of opposing you, or they have the possibility of aiding you, killing you, saving you. They're another person. They're an other. So, and this is pretty speculative, but I've heard and read that people in younger generations, Gen Z or whatever, not obviously not everybody, but this is like sort of one of the cliches about them, is that the younger generation is afraid of the other. They are afraid to make eye contact with strangers. They don't even like to talk to customer service reps on the phone. They don't like to talk to a cashier at a grocery store. They'd rather go through, the self-checkout. They prefer a text. They don't like to be surprised by a phone call. Their phone ringing is very stressful. And this might be true of people of all kinds of ages, but I think it's just like sort of the cliche of the younger generation who grew up with smartphones and stuff like that. If you've grown up used to dealing with people through a digital mediated way, you might be more comfortable taking your time to process what they're saying, taking your time to formulate your response with a text. You're not used to the pressure of having to respond, in the moment, even if it's not a stressful call. It becomes stressful because you might feel like it's almost like you don't have the improv skills, like you've been to an improv class where you like deal dynamically with the other. You want to take your time and sort it out and respond when you're ready, or not respond, make it go away if you don't want to deal with them. So yeah, I think being able to make things go away when they're unpleasant, swiping them away or closing them or shutting off, voices that you don't like, only listen to the voices that you want to hear from your social media or whatever. That's like a lot different than just having information blasted at you in a more old-fashioned way, like through radio waves or TV waves, where you just sort of there were options about what to listen to, but in a way, like you weren't able to lock into your little particular comfortable reality as much as you are these days. And I don't know whether that's good or bad. You can even replace yourself or replace the other person you're talking to with a digital avatar. You can be invisible on a Zoom call. You can turn your video off. You don't have to be seen. You can even change your voice. It reminds me of a little idea from the book Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, where in that book this was before video calls came out, but in the book, video calling is a technology that exists. And people are so uncomfortable with video calls that they buy like custom like masks that they almost like rubber Halloween masks that they put on their face to talk to each other. And I think that was pretty prophetic of David Foster Wallace to predict that we would feel that way. That book has a lot of things that are related to Han's ideas, I would say. And I think, this idea of covering your face, it's interesting that it was during COVID that Zoom became like very prominent in our lives, and also masks. So I think there were a lot of people who actually like preferred wearing the mask out in public. It made them feel better, made them feel more safe or more hidden or like less revealed or whatever. And I could see even with some of my friends that there was like a reluctance to give up the mask in a way, even though they were annoying and
The modern telephone conveys your very mood. If your voice is pleasant and courteous, it will sound just as pleasant and courteous to the person who is listening. That's good to remember. For the fact that the telephone carries your personality expressed in your voice has a lot to do with the pleasure and fun of using the telephone.
Han says, in digital communication, the other is increasingly absent. Smartphones allow us to retreat into bubbles that screen us from the other. We prefer to write a text message rather than ring someone up because in writing we are less exposed to the other. Thus, the other as a voice disappears. So you're still, when you text someone, you're still dealing with them, you're still communicating with someone, but as a voice, as a voice in the moment that you have to respond to now, like the voice, what they're saying and their tone striking you and you having to respond immediately, that the pressure of that goes away. The other becomes something under your control. And I don't know what Han would say about the fact that, for large parts of human history, the way that people would communicate over long distances was with letters, which is kind of even more extreme than texting or whatever, as far as, your separation from the other and communicating with them. I don't know, when you read old letters from people, some even just common people, regular people, the letters seem a lot more thoughtful. It can seem very intimate, not unintimate, not lacking intimacy. I don't know. It's we'll have to ask Han about that one day. Communication without a smartphone is disembodied and without a gaze. The absence of the gaze is partly responsible for the loss of empathy in the digital age, he says. The gaze builds primordial trust. Without the gaze, a disturbed relationship to self and other develops. And I kind of just wonder, again, this is just speculating. There's a lot of debate about the causes of lack of empathy in our time. I don't know if people are less empathetic now than 50 years ago or 500 years ago. When you read about how people treated each other in the Middle Ages and stuff, it can seem pretty cruel, pretty crazy, pretty cruel. So I don't know. Han says, what makes the smartphone different from a conventional mobile phone is that it is not just a telephone, but primarily a medium for transmitting images and information. The smartphone takes hold of the world and places it in front of us in the form of images. Our world is reduced to something like an image in a headline. The war in Iran, it's going good. It's going bad, depending on whatever news site you look at. We don't often go deeper than that, even when we're deciding how to feel about something like as big as a war between America and Iran. You kind of look at the headline and the very complex situation is just reduced to an image, maybe a rocket going over Tehran, and a headline. Digital images transform the world into available information. The next step in the process of civilization goes beyond the becoming image of the world. It consists in the production of the world out of images, the production, that is, of a hyper-real reality. It's a reality constructed out of ideas and information and images. So it's not something, a flower is real, but a painting of a painting of a painting of a flower is going to get more and more distant from that original flower. To get back to the title of the book, A Thing, unlike non-things, a thing is like an other. It's something is singular. It has a singular existence. It opposes you in the world. You can touch it. You can press it. If you're not strong enough, you can't move it. It's like an other. A thing is like an other. When you touch a smartphone, though, it does whatever you want. Bad things go away. Good things come to you. It's smooth to the touch. It doesn't resist you. It wants to make you feel good all the time. It wants to make you keep looking at it and to keep touching it. It wants you staring at that screen, touching that screen. Anything uncomfortable is disappeared, if you want, with a wave of your wizard's fingers, like you're like a wizard, like you have all the power. Smartphones do not really differ in their appearance. They are unadorned. Non-things are naked. The decorative and the ornamental are characteristic of things. They are life's way of telling us that life is about more than just mere functioning. In the Baroque age, the ornamental was the theater of the gods. If we submit life fully to functionality and information, we drive the divine out of life. And you don't have to think about that in a just like a Christian kind of way. But yeah, if you think about cathedrals and old buildings like that have all these superfluous gargoyles and little, those things aren't necessary for it to function as a building, but they turn it into something else. And think about that compared to like just a flat glass skyscraper. Han says, things do not spy on us. This is why we trust them. The smartphone, by contrast, not only gives us information, but it takes it from us, takes a lot of information from us. It's an efficient informant that keeps its user under constant surveillance. We're controlled by them, tracked by them, programmed by them. Han says there is no fundamental difference between being reachable at all times and being enslaved. The smartphone is a mobile labor camp in which we voluntarily intern ourselves. Think about a boss emailing or texting you on the weekend. We have no excuse not to respond anymore. The phone records every attempt to reach you. You can't say, oh, I missed your call, I didn't hear it. Platforms like Facebook or Google are our new feudal lords. We tirelessly work their land and produce the valuable data that they exploit. We feel free, although we are completely exploited and controlled. In a system that exploits freedom, there is no resistance. Once it coincides with freedom, rule becomes total. Han says the communist system represses freedom. Neoliberal surveillance capitalism exploits freedom. We're too intoxicated by our digital drugs, by our communication, to raise a voice of resistance and cry, no more. So think about 1984 versus Brave New World, those two classic dystopian books. In 1984, it's about extreme repression. Versus in Brave New World, it's about being drugged and sedated into like a passive submission. It's less of like a prison and more of like a labyrinth. In a prison, you know that you're locked up. And it's clear. You can see the exit, you just know you're not allowed to go out. You're locked in and, you sort of go from there. But in a labyrinth, you're allowed to roam around and wander around the maze. And you kind of think that you assume there must be an exit, but there might not be. You might just be wandering around that maze in total freedom forever. And it might be a more insidious way of control because you're not even aware that there is no exit. So here we're talking like big like politics ideas with Han, because he says the neoliberal regime is itself smart. Smart power does not operate through orders or prohibitions. It does not make us docile. It makes us dependent and addicted. Instead of breaking our wills, it serves our needs. It wants to be liked. It is permissive rather than repressive. It does not condemn us to silence. Rather, we are constantly asked to share our opinions, preferences, needs, desires, even to tell the stories of our lives. Smart power conceals its intention to rule by coming across as friendly, smart. The subject is not even aware of its submission, like the labyrinth. It believes that it is free. Capitalism culminates in the capitalism of the like. Because it is permissive, it need not fear resistance or revolution.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created, for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests of vain contradictory thoughts. Our unification of thoughts is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.